Little known fun fact, video games on a revenue basis are larger than movies and the music industries combined. Now, the GameFi space combines or marries the spaces of blockchain and video games. In essence, GameFi presents video games with the option of using blockchain technology and provides play-to-earn incentives for the video game player. We're here to examine this space and the very clear utility of DeFi and cryptocurrencies in the video game space with two honored guests. Aly Madhavji, he is the managing partner of the Blockchain Founders Fund, and William Wu, CEO of Catheon Gaming. Now, both of these guests represent two sides of the same coin, capital and the actual game designs themselves. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Gentlemen,
Likewise.
I'm excited to have the panel today with you guys because I wanted to get both a VC's take and a game designer's take on how the space is progressing. GameFi has been on the radar of not just casual gamers, but also institutional investors for quite some time. I've been speaking to a lot of VCs recently, and most of them agree that GameFi is one of the spaces that's growing the quickest in DeFi. So let's start with you, Aly, and we'll move on to Will and give a background overview of Catheon Gaming. But Aly, what attracted you to the GameFi space as an investment vehicle in the first place?
Yeah, this is a really good question because we actually started getting involved in blockchain gaming very early, right? So in 2018, we actually started looking at the space, and we actually made our first investment in a company called Splinterlands, which many of you might know now. They're one of the largest blockchain games in the world, with about 400,000 daily active users. And at the time when we did that deal, the questions we were getting from other investors was, why blockchain and gaming? It's weird. It doesn't make sense. And, this was from a lot of the leading funds in the world. And for us, we looked at it as a way to actually change the entire shared economics or the economic systems of games and actually create a more fair system that shares this among the users. And we were actually believe that this is just a better way that the gaming industry could work or should work. And so you've had these very large movements in the past, originally from sort of more pay to play to free to play, over the last decade. And now we actually think it's moving more towards play to earn and shared economics. And so this is a new system, and we do believe that it's going to consume a lot of the existing gaming industry over the next decade or so.
All right, we'll come back to the economics of this industry in just a bit. William, why don't you give us an overview of Catheon Gaming and some of the projects you're working on now?
Yeah, sure. So Catheon Gaming, we're the full end-to-end service provider, solution provider for traditional games that want to convert their game to a blockchain game. And so what we do is we basically do the full entire end-to-end service, right? So all the way from the actual technical challenge of converting a game to the blockchain, the marketing that's involved around it, the community building, the partnerships that you need to do, the NFT sales, the token sales, even the actual token raise and token launch. The reason we've been so focused on this is because we're a huge believer, likewise, in the power of blockchain gaming. To me, it's an inevitable trend that will happen. If ultimately, it's in simplistic terms, right? If you have two games where one, you can there's an earning potential, and you can attribute value that you've created using your time to that particular account versus not. People will eventually flock to the one where they can monetize their time. So we're huge believers in it, but I think as with most very new industries or industries that have been disrupted, our view of this is that this is an industry where most of the players have only really been in the space for at max 8 months, right? Certainly 99% of the players out there haven't been around as long as Aly. And so what that means is that, a very good game, in our view, will take upwards of 2 years plus to get done. And so the way we see it is we want to help usher the generation 2 of games, right?
Yeah.
The games that will take a bit more time to complete because they're more complex or they have to have a bit more thought behind it. Right. And get them to market faster than anyone else. Okay. So that's what Catheon Gaming is really all about.
This was for me a personally very interesting panel because I'm both a gaming fan and also a student of finance. So this was a very interesting space for me. William, I want to elaborate a little bit more on what you do. Now, Aly, I've spoken to actually the CEO of Splinterlands, actually in Miami where we last spoke. A great guy, a great game. Now he told me that not all users, of course, but there are a few portfolios on this platform where people have over $1 million amassed from playing Splinterlands. So people have become very, very rich playing games, play to earn games. William, let's talk about this. How much realistically can somebody earn playing one of your games, and how does the economic model work?
Yeah, so I mean the current economy models right now for our games will be very, very different from how the game economy works in about a year's time. I think right now, right now we're still in the process of actually launching a number of our games. The one that has actually come out is a mini game of our flagship game, which is called Soul Chicks. There, it really depends again on how many NFTs you hold, how good you are on the game, how many times you play the game per day, and even, for example, factors such as how rare your NFT are affect the earning rate in which you can earn within the game. And so I think the answer is probably it does vary. I think it is. Depending on your skill and your combination on NFTs, it can be quite substantial for someone in Southeast Asia. What we haven't got to, I think, in our games, and this is something that we're very, very focused on, is starting to introduce the more traditional gamers of the world into these games, and start having gamers who, for example, are sitting in the Western markets, who are very willing to go and spend money on games and distribute that portion of revenue that you would otherwise get over to the gamers. So I think I think we're working on that. I think the great thing about a lot of the games that we're working on is that they are relatively high quality compared to a lot of the existing games, or high quality in the sense that you do have an existing traditional user base who's already spending a lot of money, who has that demonstrated track record. They've got a demonstrated track record of creating the wiki pages and the forum pages. And they've got a track record of spending a lot of time not just to earn money out of it, right? So, and the only way we can do that is by actually using traditional games that have that existing infrastructure already built. So, I think short answer right now is, look, the amount you can earn really, really depends. There are stats out there, and over the next 12 months, we should see that actually evolve as well.
Okay, so probably substantial for somebody in Southeast Asia. I've heard that before. Some doctors in Malaysia or for the Philippines actually earning more from GameFi than their full-time medical profession. Aly, I think you told me that story. Was it somebody else in Miami? I can't remember. But can you tell me some of the stories you've heard of people in the GameFi space earning a living?
Yeah, I can give you some good examples. One, there was an article that came out in the NASDAQ and Motley Fool on Splinterlands, where a gamer started with $10, didn't buy or didn't put in any other money into the game, played the game, just over a year or so, and actually made $17,000, right? Which is, pretty significant money for not investing, say, a large amount, but obviously putting in, a fair bit of time, into the game. But we get stories, I mean, all the time. We'll get a photo of, for example, a bed, and someone will say, hey, I now can afford to sleep on this bed because I got involved in this, right? And that's, pretty life-changing stuff. Obviously, there's a fine balance, though, as well, right? So one of the problems as well with, play-to-earn gaming or GameFi is, if those economics aren't balanced, it's going to create a large imbalance in the long run, right? So if you have very high barriers to entry because a lot of early users made a lot and, later users can't earn, effectively, then there might be a very big barrier to actually playing the game. And so you do have to be careful on how you design these economics, and it does have to, work actually long term. And for many of the players, it's still been a very early journey. And so I think there's a lot that remains to be seen on creating a fine balance, here as well.
Just on that note, Aly, so as an investor, you're looking at the industry at large, and probably the first thing you're looking at is top line growth. So let's comment on that. What's the top line growth of the industry, the GameFi industry, over the last couple of years, just in percentage terms, I guess?
Yeah, I don't have the exact percentage, but I mean,
Sure.
we are seeing it explode. I mean, for example, now someone like Splinterlands, we're a multi-billion-dollar company. We're seeing exponential growth compared to traditional gaming, and we're also seeing very high retention rates, which is also quite impressive, right? Like we'll see paying users to total users that are active being, in the range of north of 50%, whereas, free to play would be 2% as an example. So the retention rates are also significantly higher in this space than traditional.
Okay, well, I brought you both here because you're both experts in your respective fields. Aly, you're a VC, so you're looking at a lot of different gaming companies, and you're scoping the industry out. So what kinds of questions would you have for a gaming company to gauge their investment potential? And William, maybe you can respond to some of these questions right after.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest aspect is one, like why people would want to play these games, and is it going to be engaging, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first part is having an incredible product. It's very hard to add a token to a product that's not very good, because you're not going to be able to scale it effectively, right? If people are only there specifically because they're earning money in the short run because a token is maybe overvalued or something like that, this is going to become a very dangerous cycle, right? So ideally, what we need is incredible game or gameplay that is going to be engaging, that has all of those things of your favorite games that you love, and then you add that with a token system that's going to amplify and make that sort of into exponential growth and enjoyment in a lot of ways. And so that would be the first piece. The second piece would be, how are you going to make this into a sustainable ecosystem, right? Think about, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years out. How is this actually going to continue to operate, and how is those economics going to function appropriately? Because this is a problem that we're seeing with some of the games that have come out, in recent times.
William, would you agree with this? And how would you respond?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our core philosophy is to work with games. I mean, what we find is even in the space right now, because of that 2-3 year development timeline or required for really, really good games, or really good product to actually come out that's actually fun and engaging to play with. There hasn't been any products out there right now that have been able to start acquiring what would you normally term a traditional game user. And so, a lot of the games that we tend to look at or select when we go and talk to game studios to work on and spend time on are games that have demonstrated that in bucket loads, millions of traditional downloads, millions of dollars in traditional revenue, infrastructure in the form of forums, probably anime franchises, even a place, for example, where people can create custom maps. So those are all indicators to us that the game is fun, and that the game people are willing to go on the game for the long term. There are certain game economy models that we find tend to work very, very well in certain type of games. For example, we've been spending quite a bit of time on grinding games, right, where people are willing to go and spend 12 hours grinding the character to the next level, right? Yeah. That, for us, for example, is a great example of where play to earn is very, very valuable, right? Because you can literally just see your time go into the form of farming resources out of the game, and therefore selling those resources afterwards. I think the second point Aly also mentioned about sustainable game economy, I think that's absolutely right. I don't think any game has got it correct yet. And obviously there's a fact of, where's the revenue coming from? Where's the users paying from? But I think it also means over the course of the next 12 to 24 months, right, we will see developments in how play-to-earn mechanics work. And so just to give an example, right, we're looking right now at mechanisms or incorporating into our games mechanisms where NFTs can actually be fused together, right? And where we can start introducing the element of chance into, for example, creation of NFTs, right? So, here's you can fuse these 33 NFTs together to get a really big NFT, but there's 30% it fails and you lose your money. Right. So when you have that type of mechanisms put in place, right, you can actually control how much you pay out, and therefore make sure that even if you don't have users coming on board long term, right, you can control how much you're paying out, and therefore sustainability of the game economy. So absolutely right. You've got to have a good game. You've got to have an enjoyable game. You've most likely got to have existing infrastructure in the game. I think going and creating your own game right now and creating and even acquiring from scratch takes a long time. And you've got to have the right game mode in it, as well as the right game economy, which takes time to get right.
The concept of trading your in-game items for real-life currency, that economic model has existed for a long time. It's just it used to be with fiat currency, right? Now we have the option of playing using blockchain. What is the added benefit of using a cryptocurrency or an in-game token rather than just selling my sword or my armor to a third party in US dollars?
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly jump in on that, right? I think in the traditional gaming space, it's frowned upon pretty strongly, right? So normally, if you're selling in-game assets or you're selling your accounts, there's a good chance you get banned, right? There's a lot of stories out there where people have been barred from these games, and it is generally not like it is usually against the terms of service. So I would say that you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, potentially whether illegal or just against the terms, and you could get banned and lose your assets. And that's not a great position to be in. It's like trying to sell your house and you might get, banned and lose your house. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that this now is a much more acceptable way to do it, but I'll let William take the other part of that question on, the token economics benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the president of an independent market, right, at which any time you can trade that account that belongs to you. That's the same with tokens and NFTs, right? So you can trade it on an NFT marketplace, or you can trade it on a token place at a price and liquidate that. So being not getting into trouble with the ban hammer, right, is definitely a benefit, right? But I think really having true ownership of your assets and being able obviously to trade it, but also to really start porting it over to other games also works is a huge benefit as well. So for example, our Chicks tokens, we've started to develop use cases outside of just within the game, right? So we just got on an exchange could Soul see yesterday, where they can actually use, or our users can use their Chicks token to go and bid on their NFTs on the marketplace, completely independent marketplace. So I think, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of different use cases outside of more so than traditional gaming.
What's your, just on that note, William, what's your ethos around designing in-game tokens? So just for example, going back to Splinterlands, because I had a conversation with the CEO, they have a few in-game tokens. One of them is actually an algo stablecoin that they have a coin that's more volatile in price, but that they have an in-game algo stablecoin that is mainly used for transactions in game. And their reasoning is that gamers want a more or less a stable currency, not something that's very volatile to trade with for in-game items. And so going around tokenomics, what is your ethos around token design? How do you design a token that you think gamers would want to use?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really depends on the game that we work with, and sometimes they already have token economy, just not crypto in a cryptocurrency format, but they do have stones that you can earn, shards that you can earn, et cetera, et cetera. We tend to right now work with somewhere between usually around two cryptocurrency tokens, and one we usually have as the earning token, and the other one you actually use as a governance token. We keep them relatively separate, and the simple reason why is because we try to steer away from a pay to win mechanism where if you have a single token and one player decides to go and spend a lot of money to go and acquire that token on the market, then they can go and obviously buy a lot of the equipment and therefore take the fun out of everyone, take the fun out of it for everyone. So right now, it does depend on the game that we're working with and whether, oftentimes we try to use the existing token economy and work with it as opposed to go and try to recreate something from scratch. And sometimes that means, for example, some games already have token economies, and all we do there is we just give them put into the game a mechanism where they can convert their stones into a cryptocurrency conversion point outside of the game, right? So it does depend, but generally we look for trying to avoid pay to win, trying to make it very simple, and trying to get something done as soon as possible to get to the market as quickly as possible.
Right, Aly, let's talk about the crypto landscape at large and how that affects GameFi interest. So, as you know, since we last spoke in Miami in November, the crypto market has been steadily declining, and not just for Bitcoin, Ethereum, but the altcoin space as well. We saw what happened with the Luna crash just this week. So, major sell-offs happening. Do you think this sell-off has, I guess, waned appetite for play-to-earn games? Are they related in any way?
I don't think it's necessarily directly linked in that way. I think the overall market's been hit, but I think also in part there's been challenges on the economics of some of these games, especially when the games haven't fully launched, right? So you've got a lot of games out there that, haven't launched, but their tokens are out, and that's obviously a difficult case to continue to build a user base and community around it. So I think that's been part of it. We are overall, though, very bullish on the sector as a whole. Like, we do believe that play to earn is going to start to consume, free to play in a very significant way, and it's already started. But keep in mind that it's a rocky road. So, there's going to be ups and downs. And, I think overall, if you do your sort of research and due diligence into the different companies and you love the product in the game, that's probably a pretty good part of the decision-making process as well.
We have a few minutes left of the last segment. I'd like to just talk about the future, brainstorm what you would like to see in terms of development of video games going forward, both from a product side and an economic side. Basically, we've got a lot of new technological advancements coming up that are making headlines. We've got the metaverse that's being developed by a lot of different tech companies. We've got Web3 that people are talking about. How does a video game of the future look like to you, both, again, from an economics and a product side? Aly, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key things when you think about play to earn. One is, how accessible is it, right? So when you think about product, one of the things we're looking at, for example, is this web-based, as an example, or what types of resources does this take? And I think there's a big advantage to being a web-based game to an extent in the space because of the global nature. On the other hand, developing a more intensive game that, requires, say, more intensive graphics, processors, things like that, can also be an advantage in certain markets, right? It's going to open you up, in a big way to potentially North America, Europe, things like that. But where you don't have as strong resources, then it might be very difficult to actually expand globally into emerging markets, right? So, for example, the Philippines has been a very big play to earn market, but in a lot of ways, like, web is going to perform a lot better than much deeper resource intensive games. So that's one part.
Okay. Keep going, please.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's one aspect that we're really looking at. Two, I think being able to iterate and build your community and have your community involved as along the way and shaping things that you're doing is very critical in the Web3 world. And I think being able to incorporate feedback very effectively and build around that community, I think is very important, and having transparency with your community. So, we're seeing some really cool companies right now that are, literally sharing updates daily or every other day on what's going on, and taking feedback and advice from their community as part of building. And this is a different way of thinking, right? Typically, when you see games being developed in the traditional world or Web2 world, you'll see, you know, multi-year, not much being released, maybe one trailer, and then you know, then the game's released, right? And this is very different when you've got, you know, transparency in every little thing that's actually happening. It's pretty cool.
Or you've got Cyberpunk 2077 that's got 10 million trailers and, you know, incomplete game launch, but I'm not going to bash Cyberpunk.
there you go.
I love CD Projekt Red, one of my favorite game designer companies. I love Witcher 3. Anyway, all right, great thoughts, Aly. William, the video game of the future, what do people want, let's say, 10 years, 10 years is a bit long for the video game cycle, but let's just 5 years from now, what do you think the video gamer would like to see, and how are you, you know, designing games to fit that future objective here?
So I think to me, the video game of the future, we are going to have, by the power of play to earn gaming, just entire audiences and generations of players that would otherwise never have picked up a game in their life before, right? So the way I see it is that the market's going to be way bigger than it has been historically, several magnitudes larger. You're going to have not just your mom and your dads and your bus drivers who are going to be playing games, and also, you know, just by the power of what's happening with the infrastructure being built around the metaverse, you're going to have really, really connected games, right? So the way we see it is that in the future, we're going to have hubs of players. Right now, it's quite sporadic and they're quite all over the place, but over time, you should start seeing hubs of when critical mass gets reached by those hubs. What we're trying to do in our portfolio is really try to build towards one of those hubs. We're trying to amass as many games under the single roof possible, and then drive a lot of those synergies and cross-pollination of users between our different games, right? And that those genres can vary quite tremendously, like an MMORPG like Soul Chicks, or a classic shooter or a singing game, or games like, for example, anime games that we have in our portfolios, right? But our belief is that over time you will start to see players concentrate in masses in certain communities. We want to be one of those one big communities, and the way you get there is by getting to critical mass and developing great products all around the ecosystem. So I think the short answer for us is, look, we want to get to a place where that's going to capture these huge generations of players that would otherwise have never touched a game in their life before, and I think that's a really great place to be.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's very interesting to see shifting demographics of video game players, especially with the onset of mobile games. You're seeing a lot more women now, older folks playing video games as well. Final question for the both of you, and I'll let you go. Your favorite video game growing up? That's not Catheon Gaming, of course, but Aly, I'll start with you.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's go with Age of Empires.
Okay, which one? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
The first one.
The first one? Yeah. What was the cheat for the laser
oh my
Big
God.
Daddy? I think
on the car. Yeah, there you go.
The laser cars. Yeah, that was my favorite cheat.
Best.
I remember that. It was fond memories. All right, William.
Yeah. Look, I was a great fan of MapleStory, Dota, and the Final Fantasy series. I'd say 3 because they're all equally very good.
You think that your childhood gameplay kind of inspired or I guess steered you in your current career in terms of your game design?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are games that have decades of history, right? They've just lasted forever, right? So what we're trying to do is build something very similar.
Right. All right. Very good. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure speaking with both of you. I learned a lot, so thank you both, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks
so much for having us on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin.